Councillor Croson, sound check.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Can I ask her? Deputy Mayor Croson.
Yes, Council.
Did you want to chair, or do you want me to do it since I'm in the building?
Since you're in the chair and in the building, please go right ahead. It's much easier for the city clerk's office.
I can vacate the chair at any moment. All right. Thank you, Deputy
No,
Mayor.
please go right ahead. It's way easier for everyone if you take the chair.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'll call this SPC, Governance Standing Policy Committee, to order. Before we begin, we've almost done it unofficially, but let's do a roll call around the room, shall we? Thank you.
Certainly. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Present.
Councillor Dodick.
Present.
Councillor Carlson.
Present.
Councillor Croson.
Here.
Thank you. We are all present. Are there any other members of council joining us? I don't see any in the physically here. Nobody online? Excellent. Thank you for that. The agenda has been circulated. I'll start with the acknowledgement statement. City of Lethbridge acknowledges we're gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains, and we pay respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Thank you. The agenda was circulated. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at it. Has anyone got any questions regarding the agenda? Seeing none. Moved by Acting Mayor Dodick that the agenda of the regular meeting of Governance Standing Policy Committee on March 24th, 2002 be adopted as presented. Mr. City Clerk or Ryan, any changes?
There are no amendments.
Additions? Thank you.
Call the question.
Questions been called. All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Do I have to sign these? Or are they're good now? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item 4, the consent agenda, moved by Councillor Croson. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Governance Standing Policy Committee held Thursday, February 24th, 2022 be approved, and the Chair and Clerk designate be authorized to sign the same. Councillor Croson.
If we all consent, I'll call the question.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions on the previous minutes? Seeing none, the question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, we do have 2 presentations today. The first, Tara Grindle, Manager Corporate Communications, regarding the Council Action Plan, the Communications Plan. Tara.
That's a lot of plans. There's a whole lot of plans going on. So I just wanted to bring forward the communication plan we have for the Council Action Plan. We have put together some tactics and tools here, and I just wanted to share that with the SPC. It is your plan, and I want you to be aware of how we hope to communicate it and get any feedback from you. So back when we launched the plan in January, we, as part of that, promised to the community that we would report back quarterly. So that first quarter will be coming to an end here in March. And as we gather up the information and the data from what's been accomplished in the first quarter, then we'd be looking to communicate that out to the community probably in April. And those, I just kind of laid out the quarters. It would be kind of the month after that each of the communication pieces would be planned to go out to the community. So we have created a communications plan for the launch, and then sort of an ongoing communications plan as well. We've been collecting some of those action plan items as we go. Usually if there's a news release coming out of council that's connected to the action plan, we're always referencing that back and making that connection. So we kind of have a running tally of that in the communications department anyways as we go. But we're also working with Tony and his folks in corporate performance to make sure that we're aligning with all of that reporting that's happening to try to establish the content for those quarterly reports. So just for the high-level communication tactics, just to give you an idea of the things we wanted to do, is we do have the monthly Herald column always from the mayor, which we would include an update each quarter on this. We would like to look at doing some video updates as well with the mayor or designate. Obviously, we would do a news release and any media relations when we launch the report. Social media with links to graphics and video, all that visual stuff. And then the one different thing that I really wanted to talk to you guys today about was a quarterly e-newsletter. So as you can see on the side there is something we send out to staff every Monday morning, and we use a system called Cyber Impact, which is an e-newsletter system, and it's nice and easy, and it comes right to your inbox with all the information you want. So we thought this would be a really good idea to start to do this and build up a subscription of residents who just want to get information about what's happening with City Council. I think that we can tailor to that audience. It's you know, there's people that are interested in this kind of stuff and council decisions and all of that sort of stuff. And if they got that information right to their inbox, then that's an easier way to communicate with that group. So I would see the action plans, I would see this happening quarterly. I would see the action plan being a big piece of it, but I also could see this being used, especially in the next little bit here, around the operating budget and all of the things that are going to be happening with that, the engagement opportunities and all of those kind of things. And we're also looking at our recruitment plan for boards, committees, and commissions. Those are just a few of the examples we thought we could probably use an e-newsletter for. So we've done it a couple of different times. Externally, we've used it for waste and recycling. So when we launched the blue cards, everybody's card said you can sign up for this e-newsletter and you could get recycling tips and information and videos and all of those kind of things. And we got a really good uptake from that. So I think there's different ways we can encourage people to subscribe, but it's an easy click of the button and all of the castle regulations and everything like that. This is a Canadian company, so it's a really easy way to collect people's information and be able to send them stuff right out to their inbox. So. Some of the things that work well with these tactics that we have is really getting those tangible metrics, so understanding what social media hits we're having, how many people are coming to websites, and then that e-newsletter gives us some really good stats too. We can see how many people opened it, how many people clicked on what things, you can see what things people are interested in, so you can really tailor your content to make it more relevant to the people looking at it. So I guess I just wanted to make sure that council had heard this information and knew before we create a council e-newsletter and all of a sudden everybody's subscribing to it. So just if you're comfortable with these tactics that we have, if you have any feedback or concerns for us.
Thank you. Up for questions? I just didn't see the question slide, so I was hoping we were done. Councillor Middleton Hope, I believe, has a question.
Thank you. The first comment that I have in regards to reviewing the document, you speak very specifically about social media as a methodology of gaining feedback on your evaluation strategy. The website, also good. There's another checkpoint. E-newsletter. What's missing? There's 20% of us in this city that are 55 years of age and older. Yeah. And lots of us don't engage social media. In fact,
yeah, so that's the media relations piece of it, right? Huh? That's the media relations part of it. So we would be doing newsletters, we'd be doing media relations, those kind of things. They're not. We don't get metrics from that as well, right?
How do you intend on communicating with the 20% of the population that is 55 years of age and older?
Well, so those are just more of your general news outlets, right? That's the method we have to reach those folks. If they're not online, then it's doing media availabilities, doing a news release. It gets on the radio, it gets in the newspaper, those kind of things. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a portion of it.
Yeah, that's a part of the plan for sure. Just the evaluation piece there's no way to evaluate how many people read the newspaper, those kind of things. I mean, they have stats on who reads their newspaper, but
They
yeah,
do.
for sure.
Yeah, there are thousands of people that do read the newspaper, and
Yeah.
you'd think that we might want to tap into that.
Oh, we would for sure, absolutely. Every quarter we would do a news release. I think it was one of the slides earlier, the news release and media relations, and then you would do a media availability, and our media are great here. They're really responsive and always pick up on all of our media stuff, so they're a really good partner for sure.
Don't leave that group out.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Second question is in regards to the term that you use is satisfaction, as we're going through the questions and so forth. we
Oh,
talk
you're
in
looking
terms
for the
of,
satisfaction survey.
Yeah,
Sorry, this is the action plan. We haven't got to that presentation yet.
so then I have questions for later, apparently.
Okay.
There's my
It's up
first hit.
next, so. this is
Just get
on the
ready, because
action
there's
plan.
more. Okay.
Okay, for sure.
Right.
20 of us over 55 and older read the package.
I do read the package.
Well, we'll put it in the newspaper for you,
Thank you.
Councillor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Croson.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Thank you very much, Ms. Grindle, for the presentation. It is always difficult to try to reach out to everyone, and I get that. So following up partly on what Councillor Middleton Hope said, but in general as well, do you feel confident that what we have here is reaching out to the majority of demographics in Lethbridge as much as we can, knowing that there are countless ways that people do access information, but are we covering the demographics, and are we basically following something that will have something for everyone essentially?
With the resources we have, yes. I mean, you could go and deliver things to people, and you could email everybody, you could set, but we have a fairly small team, so I think with the resources we have, this hits as broad of an audience as we can, absolutely.
And will you be asking the mayor to do TikTok videos?
Oh, I think we should put that on the list. I like it.
Okay. I'd be willing to watch that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you. If we can put the mayor on TikTok to a vote, I know which way I would vote. Just a quick question, if I can, Tara. The council e-newsletter.
Yeah.
How is that going to be populated? Who's going to create it? How is council going to be involved in what? If it's going to be council's newsletter,
Yeah.
I'll just be honest, sometimes we do press releases that I see after the fact
Yeah.
On behalf of council, and I completely disagree with what's in there.
Okay.
And so those are kind of issues I have.
Yeah.
Like the good news budget that we put out. It's not really a good news budget in my opinion. So I would have liked to have had some input.
What we do internally is we put together, like my staff can put it together, and we have things already created, which we're assuming, I guess, is approved by council when we get the quotes from people and gather the information. So if there needs to be a different process there, we can look at that. But what we could do is, if they're only quarterly, so there's only 4 of them a year, so we could, mock it up and send it to council and say, provide any feedback you have, and get feedback that way, or do it, through your EA maybe to gather feedback if there's any concerns with what's in there.
Cool. I appreciate that thought. It's
Yeah.
always nice. I appreciate you coming here and saying we'd want to let you know we're doing it. As a member of council, I'd like to know what's in it before it goes out to the
Fair
public.
enough.
So that's something I'd like to see.
There's also, and sorry, you would also see kind of the report of what's happened within the action plan piece of it. So if there's extras like the boards and commissions or things like that, but the action piece, the action plan piece will be reported to you anyways, what you've accomplished throughout the quarter anyway.
Awesome. Thank you. And following up on, I think you said, I can't recall, I think you said people can subscribe to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Is there going to come a point where everything is in one clearinghouse? Right now, we've got the transit app, and we've got the loop, and we've got, and people may be annoyed that I've got to sign up for 19 different things rather than say, I sign up for one. I want it all to come through the loop or
Yeah.
wherever.
So we have our DICE project underway, which is our digital customer experience project that looks at bringing all of those things together. It is not easy, and there is really not one product that does everything, because everything's kind of tailored to for a different purpose, right? So yes, it would be much easier if we could have it all in one, and that would ultimately be the goal as we try to, bring different pieces in. But we're just kind of, when a situation like with the app, obviously it got too expensive to continue with the texting, and so then we needed the app for the Lethbridge Loop. There's different things like that come up that you kind of need to just, what makes the most financial sense too, right? So.
Thank you. I do have Deputy Mayor Croson and Acting Mayor Dodick in the queue. Reiko, you haven't asked a question? I'll jump you first.
Actually, I just wanted to follow up on what Councillor Carlson had said, talking about a release about Good News Budget. That sort of twigged on me. There's no doubt that even though City Council is, at least theoretically, supposed to be apolitical when you're talking about provincial and federal matters, you do get into a potential problem when, for example, as Councillor Carlson mentioned, because I recall reading that as well, and depending on which lens you're looking at, who's ever making the announcement, you're either saying, well, it's a cup half full or it's a cup half empty. And so if you're doing it's a cup half full thing, you're almost in a sense endorsing it, whereas a lot of the members of council might not agree with the budget. So I'm just saying, when it comes to announcements that involve another order of government and having this government, the municipal government, make comments on it, I think somehow we got to be really careful as to how we're characterizing it, and that's what just twigged on what.
Yeah, and the thing with the provincial and federal budgets, and it is a tricky spot, and quite often when they come out, you don't know, like you still don't know what's in it, right? A lot of times, the proof is in the pudding sometimes, but is that then our local media want a response, right? Like and so it's just trying to find that balance where you still work with your partners in your local media and you want to be a good partner and give them that local angle and the municipal perspective of it without, it's not your basket, right?
Go back to the old fallback. On one hand, it's good. On the other hand, it's not so good.
Right. That's the key message right there.
Here's my fence, and I'm sitting up on it. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Croson.
Thank you. When we put out information, our tendency, and it's not just our tendency, it's human tendency, is to put out the good news. We achieved this, we did this, look at how wonderful things. What's the plan? How do we handle when things don't go well? When, like for various reasons, world economics or whatever, something fails. Is there an equal plan to deal with that within this annual plan communications process?
Yeah, I guess you have to look at the timing and look at where things are at. In the action plan, we looked at now, next, later. So there's definitely some check boxes there that were expected to be filled at some times. And I think we probably just need to sort of weigh where everything is at. And I think that's part of Tony's help too, is just keeping track of that and what are the barriers, if there are barriers. And so we can help explain that for sure.
I just know, thinking with the resident hat, that if all you're ever pushing out is good news, they're going to start wondering what the real story behind all that is.
Right, yeah. Nothing goes that smooth, right?
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have no more questions in the queue, so we'll move along. Thank you. Motion by Deputy Mayor Croson. That be it resolved that the Government Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council receive the communications plan as provided in Attachment 1 as information. Deputy Mayor Croson?
Unless there's any real debate, I say let's inform our colleagues, and I'll call the question.
Thank you. I see no one chomping at the bit, so the question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? With some good fence sitting, Council, or Middleton Hope. You'll write the next press release. Thank you for that. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, I've lost. There it is. Item 2. Oh, Ms. Grindley, you're still up. Manager, Corporate Communications, regarding the Operating Budget, Community Engagement, and Communications Plan. Thank you.
So there's two of us this time. I'd like to introduce you to Caitlin Barr. Caitlin is our Community Engagement and Partnership Strategist that just joined the communications team a couple months ago. A month ago? 1 month ago. So she's been very busy putting together the plan for the operating budget, which is what we would like to walk through with you today. So basically, just a quick overview. We'll kind of look at the project overview, our engagement approach, the level of engagement and audience, and then communication and engagement methods and tools. So in the package was a copy of the public participation policy, which specifically outlines that we will engage with the community related to operating and capital budgets, which is why we are here with a plan for you for the operating budget engagement. As you know, the next 4-year operating budget is coming up here in the fall, and that it will require engagement between City Council, staff, community stakeholders, and our residents. And the purpose of this whole engagement plan is to make sure you have the information you need to make good decisions when you get to that operating budget table.
So given that today is one of the first times we've been able to come to the new council to focus on public participation, we thought we'd give a brief overview of Policy 60. This policy was made in order to comply with Section 216.1 of the Municipal Government Act. The policy codifies the city's prioritization of public involvement, and it prioritizes engagement early and throughout all of our processes for the purpose of good governance. In the policy, it states that council's role is to consider input obtained through the public participation process, and administration's role is to develop, implement, report, and assess public participation plans. So each project benefits from a different level of public participation. The city uses the International Association of Public Participation's scale of public engagement to guide the different levels of public participation. The scale is helpful not only in that it sets expectations for the city, but also for residents. We use the city's engagement framework to develop our engagement plan for this project. So the two previous slides, we covered the top 2 points on this slide, but I'd like to direct your attention to the 4th point here, which references public participation standards. Those standards are in Policy 60, and briefly they just cover that our public participation is inclusive, accessible, timely, and respectful.
So for the operating budget, the level of engagement for this plan is the consult. So basically that's to get public feedback so that you can analyze and or make a decision. And then that the promise to the public is that we would keep them informed, listen to and acknowledge their concerns, and that we would close that loop. So we would let them know how that feedback has been used. And that's an important piece of the community engagement for sure. Looking at target audiences, we have quite broad audiences. Obviously, the budget impacts everybody in the community. So looking at public, city staff, media, stakeholder groups. So here's just a quick overview of the main engagement methods and communication tools. We'll kind of go into each of these on slides coming up. We've talked about the community satisfaction survey already, so that's scheduled for April and May. Online budget allocator tool, similar to what we've done in the past. If you saw that last time, it's a little tool online where you can kind of do a little bit more education with folks. So that's an August-September plan. Household postcards, which again we'll get into a little bit more, would be August, and then looking at any possible in-person engagement opportunities in the fall, late summer, early fall.
So jumping into the community satisfaction survey, this survey signals the first phase of the operational budget engagement. This survey helps obtain feedback from our silent majority in the community by giving a phone call to 400 residents. Phone calls are made through landlines and through cell phones. The survey results will help provide feedback into the budget decision-making for City Council.
So when we looked at the questions, Caitlin and I have been through all of the questions we've done in the past and kind of compiled them and looked at them and compared them. And we've been working with the consultants, so Ipsos has done this survey for us over the years, and they're kind of the subject matter experts in this field, do a lot of municipal surveying, so they've been able to give us some good feedback. And we've looked at those tracking questions, so those ones you keep every year, those year over year, so you can compare them, and wanting to keep those. Looked at ways to minimize the time commitment for respondents. So we've heard from Ipsos, the last one was 19 minutes long, which they said like we would never get to 20 minutes. Like that would be way too long. So we're already up against it, even just with the questions we had last time. We looked at how the questions aligned with Council's action plan themes, and then we evaluated the questions for the usefulness of their information. And when you look at the list, we have there's a column on the side, kind of like what would we do with this information, or what would this question tell us, just so we can see if we're asking something we can actually do something with. Like I said, we've been working with the consultant. They've been able to help us with some clarity on a few questions that we didn't quite like from last time, or we're adding some couple things in that we've changed for this. So they've been able to help us and add us a little bit more advice on the questions for 2022.
After the community satisfaction survey, we jump into the online budget allocator tool. This allocator tool will be published through a link on our Get Involved Lethbridge website. The tool simulates municipal budget decision-making for each participant and ultimately will help council and administration understand the operational priorities of our residents and give residents the opportunity to tell us which services they believe merit more or less funding. The tool also shows residents how their answers line up against those of other participants. And the tool, not so much in contrast with the survey, but maybe a little bit in contrast with the survey, gives more information and more context when you're talking about fiscal decision making, so that it is a bit of an educational tool as well.
Yeah, we noticed in some of the questions we'd asked previously about budget, it would be like, do you want to put more money in parks? Well, without any context of to what does that do to other budgets, or how much money is already in parks, and how do I, it's really hard to ask that question and get information that would be useful. So I think the budget allocator tool is a better way to be able to get good quality feedback from residents that way.
As a means of getting people to our Get Involved webpage, we will be sending out postcards to each household, and on the postcard will be a QR code of some sort, which will lead them to the Get Involved site. Once their individuals can begin the budget allocation process. The postcard will also provide residents who have barriers to the internet and the opportunity to call us and still participate in the budget allocator tool process. We've used this tactic before. The postcard tactic was very successful with our Rec and Culture Master Plan. With that, we got 42,000 postcards were sent out, and we got just under 3,000 responses.
Which is a really good number for a survey for us, typically.
And then finally, our in-person engagement opportunities. So these will leverage popular community events and the partnerships that the city already has. At these events, we will promote the upcoming operational budget decision-making process, but also encourage public participation in the Budget Allocator tool. Our objective while attending these events will be to drive the public to the online tool or to provide residents with information on alternative means of participating. And that concludes our presentation, so we are open to questions.
Thank you. I've got a few members of the committee in the queue. Acting Mayor Dodig.
Thank
You're
you.
coming up as Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, so.
That's who I am. The community satisfaction survey, are those questions going to be done by a third party?
Yeah, that's all done through the Ipsos consultant. Yeah.
I wasn't going to name the company. I was going to say, I was assuming it was going to go through a request for proposal. All right, so they're the ones that are weighing these. The reason I asked that question is that sometimes people get bogged down in statistical analysis, whether it's reliable, i.e. it can be repeated over and over and valid, whether it actually measures what it supports to measures. So it will be Ipsos doing it, and they will be able to
Absolutely.
give the analysis on reliability and validity, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Acting Mayor, a couple questions. Did you want, maybe we'll do this in chunks, because you need some feedback on certain things, I'm assuming?
Have feedback. We are open to that for sure.
Okay. I'll dive in then first, and maybe we can keep our questions, because I think this is kind of important. We're going to talk about the actual, since Acting Mayor has already started talking about the community satisfaction survey.
Yep.
Maybe this first round of questions, if that's all right with my colleagues, we'll focus on the survey and perhaps the questions.
Yep.
Bonnie, look at me. Like, is that okay? sort of just keep them in chunks so we keep all of our thoughts straight. So I had a couple questions. You've added 2 questions.
Right.
I believe one was on the 311 service. The other was on what would you like us to add?
Correct. Those were the 2 we kind of thought might be helpful. I mean, obviously, the questions were around customer service before. From 2018 survey didn't include 311. So we changed that up to include both the 311 and then if you've interacted with other city employees. And then the one that was added about what other services you might want to see, there seemed to be a bit of a gap on some things, maybe like environment or some areas specific that we didn't ask any questions about. So it might be helpful to see if that rises up from residents themselves as something they want to see.
Okay, thank you. We used to do an exercise similar, where we would actually invite people to come into City Hall. We take 2 days, and one of the questions we always asked was, if you had a magic wand for the city, what? And the pie in the sky things we would get. So I just always wonder with those kind of open-ended questions, have we talked to the consultant about those types of open-ended questions? Because people are going to say, I want more doctors, or I want more of this, something, a bigger hospital, some things that the municipality doesn't have any say in. So discuss that with.
And the only other way of doing it is giving a list of things, which is what we do when we talk about how satisfied are you with these programs and services, and those take a really long time, right? So if you wanted to say, like, do you want this, do you want this, do you want this, that takes a really long time. So the open-ended gives them an opportunity if there's something like, hey, I really want to say this, but they still have the chance to do that. But it's just, it may not bucket enough people into a hole that you could see everybody wants another spray park or something, right? So.
Thank you for that. Final question on this tack from me. you've added those 2 questions, or you're proposing adding those 2 questions.
Yeah.
It was already 19 minutes. Did we drop?
Yeah, we took out a couple of questions on, like I mentioned, about the funding, around the, like,
But those
where
were
would you want to spend more money? And those ones we just, when we looked at what would this tell us, we just thought there wasn't enough context there for people to give you good information. So we did take out a few of those ones.
Okay, thank you, and that triggers another one. Q7, Q8, Q15 have a list that goes along with them.
Yeah.
Is there a way to shorten the list? I'm going to be honest. A 19 or 20 minute survey is going to a lot of folks, especially the younger generation who likes things in 5-minute bites.
Yeah.
I tried not to look. May not enjoy a 20-minute survey.
No.
Is there a way to pare down that list?
Well, do you have the list there? I thought I brought it down with me.
Actually, I think the companies take that into account when they're doing their analysis in terms of that, because I know that Fair Analysis used to, when they got the demographics, so they actually calculated that into their
Yeah, and they will do it until they reach the 400, right? So if there's 17 people that are angry and then one does it, you just keep going until you get to the 400. But yeah, I agree. It's a lot to try to do that. I remember seeing so we have emergency services, ambulance services, maintenance, cleaning, upgrading of streets and sidewalks, police services, fire protection, garbage collection. Probably that. So we have garbage collection and recycling we could maybe put together if we wanted, but snow removal, parks and open spaces, recreation facilities, land use and community planning, recycling, public library, cities, trails and path systems, animal control and sheltering, bylaw enforcement, accessorized public transit, and arts and culture facilities.
A lot. So
There's a lot. We do a lot.
yeah, that's all right. I just wanted to highlight that. I'll jump out.
Yeah.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of observations. So I'll go back to my comment originally. You use the term satisfaction as part of the surveying process. It's a presumptive term. Has there been any thought into looking at something that is language that is much more neutral than whether you are satisfied or, and I've been through many of these, and I always find that there's a skew when we use the term satisfaction. There's a presumption that you are satisfied, and therefore you have to argue that you're not satisfied, or you have to provide evidence that you're not satisfied. So is there thought to language like that going out?
Yeah, I think it's just, that's what it's been called for since 2011, since we've done it. So whether people recognize that as, okay, this is the survey they do every 4 years or not, I don't know. I don't think it would matter if we changed the name. If you had a different name you would prefer.
Just asking you to be sensitive to it, and simply because we've done it since 2011 doesn't mean that we've necessarily done it now.
I just think that it probably is, yeah, it's just been that way. You're right.
So asking you to perhaps think outside the box a little. In terms of the questions and the style of questions and so forth, they're very subjective. What strategies you've put in place to do any kind of objective analysis of any of the responses?
So that is, again, what that analysis piece will be what the consultants do. And that, I mean, it's not my area of expertise, so that's why we've...
One of mine.
Is it? we should have got you to help then. I guess it's... I think that's, like I said, we've been providing, using it consistently, which I hope is providing us that year-over-year consistency, the same methodology, I believe.
Methodology is probably consistent, yeah. The responses won't be. You're asking people open-ended questions, and at the end of the day, they can respond pretty much anything. So how then do you quantify that information to provide you with direction?
So from the reports, from the past reports, do you think that the information in here needs to be clearer?
I think any type of survey, we have to be sensitive to the fact that they're often very skewed in favor of the organization that is providing the survey. So I just simply ask you to be sensitive to that and examine it with the consulting firm in terms of what you're hoping to get out of this.
Okay.
Two final questions. Question number 19 does not appear to be finished. There are no options to agree or disagree on. Did I miss something?
So I'll just repeat the question just so I know. Thinking about your personal dealings with the city of Lethbridge, is that the one you're referring to? Okay.
Yeah. Please indicate if you agree or disagree with each of the following statements.
Oh, yes, you're right. It's unfinished. I'm sorry.
There will be.
Yes.
Okay, great. Excellent. Okay.
That's an error on my.
Yeah, and are you satisfied, Ms. Grindle, with the 7% return? Well, we're getting 7% of 3,000 responses out of 42,000 that we put out. Do you feel that that adequately provides us with sufficient, robust input in order to provide direction?
Right, so that's in combination with the phone survey we have as well. So we're hoping, and when we, with the consultant that we worked with on the Rec and Culture Master Plan, that was the most they'd ever seen with that engagement, and it does give you a really good, margin of error, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's realistic, right? It's
Certainly not unrealistic, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Crowson.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Thank you, Ms. Grindle, for the presentation. I know every year we try to tweak this and improve it just a bit, and we make the changes, but there's also a need to have some parts of it the same, because how can you compare year over year if you don't have some parts to it? One of the things that is changing, though, is about question 14, where we're asking about communication methods, a wide variety of communication methods, and I assume there'll be a list that they can pick from. Is there any thought there, and again, cognizant of people's time, is there any thought to, are there communication methods we're missing as an add-on to that question? Because that might be where we can find out, you guys are missing this entire group of people because you're not asking for using this.
Yeah, I think like that before. Yeah, I think there was one like that before, and our objective here was just to make sure that we are able to engage with our community in a manner that they are satisfied with. It's a valuable insight. I guess our concern was simply timing, and the timing of the survey is already at 20 minutes. So do we have time to ask them about specific methods that they're using?
Right.
I guess that would be the open-ended one too, right?
Okay, as long as there's a chance for it, and understanding that the survey is just one thing in a broad part of it. Since I'm the last of the four to ask on this round, I'm going to ignore what Councillor Carlson said and ask about some other parts of the presentation as well. First, the budget allocator. I have to tell you, of course, that I put things out on my Facebook page, and that is the one that got the best response from people. They don't call it the budget allocator, but what people have noted is the interactive budget dashboard where you get to spend $100 as a representation of the city budget is awesome.
Yeah.
So recognize that people really, really do like that tool. That is the one that every time I hear feedback on positive. So letting people know about that and letting more people know about that will be great to have. And when you're talking about having the in-person days, it wasn't clear or I didn't find it. Is that something that council can come to as well to interact with people through that device?
Yeah, and not really knowing yet what's a go and what's a not a go and things like that in the summer. It's hard to know exactly what those would look like. We were thinking we could have the opportunity at a farmer's market or at, an air show or something like that there's an event where you could even have iPads, people could go on and do their budget allocator or do those kind of things. So certainly if council would like to join in those activities, we would be very open and excited about that for sure.
And one more idea, and again, it's always difficult because, how you put things out has its own biases to it, but we have the BCCs, right? We have people from the community already actively engaged, thinking the youth advisory so that, they reach out to the younger demographic, but we have BCCs across the entire spectrum. Is there a way to use those groups to help us with putting out some of this messaging as well? Because we already know that these are people who volunteer their time to support the community. They would be actively engaged. Is there a way that we can use that as a method?
Yeah, I think that's certainly a great idea. Those individuals are all community connectors, so we should definitely leverage their reach.
Thank you.
I
will
think that
step
would
out right
be,
now.
yeah, part of the bigger plan of those stakeholder groups too, right? I think even providing information to our partners like at the Chamber and the Downtown BRZ and those groups that we work with all the time, when there is something like the Budget Allocator, like, can you share this with your groups? And then the BCCs would be a great one to add to that list.
And we should never forget that we have 1,600 employees who are also community members as well.
For sure.
And they talk to their families and their friends and, people as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. I'll step out right now.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Final question from me on the survey. It may be a faulty memory, but at one point, because we had, you get it all the time. I don't believe you did a survey because no one phoned me.
Right.
And I believe at one time, maybe it was the last iteration, maybe it was previous to that, we allowed people to take the survey. We didn't include them in the statistically valid data, but we said, fill your boots. I think we actually gave them a number to call. I think once we actually gave them Graham's number by accident, and he quickly changed that.
I am not signing up for that.
Yeah, no. But I'm just wondering if anyone recollects us doing something like that, allowing the general public to say, I wish to take the survey. It won't be aggregated into the 400,
Right.
But it would form a sidebar of
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
Does
I
anyone
don't
recall?
remember that, but I can check with Graham and see. He should probably remember.
Yeah, Graham.
And see, because I mean, we do get involved Lethbridge too, that we can put surveys on if we wanted to do a different version that way,
Yeah, or even an online
an online version.
where somebody could go and say, I
Yeah.
took the survey.
Yeah. Okay.
Beating down the doors. Excellent. Any further questions on the customer dissatisfaction survey, as I think it'll known as from here on? I'm seeing none. The ennui. Oh, I like it. Is there anything else you need on the survey from the SBC?
No, I guess we just, if we do want to change the name of it, is there a way we need to get that approved from somebody? Or do you want us to just, I don't know if we need to change the name, if we want to change the name of it, or also the examining the results with the consultants, what specifically things we should be looking for there.
Why don't you ask them if community services survey works or something like that?
Yeah.
QS?
Would community services
Or
survey work?
disservices?
Or
Communities-
disservices, not.
Yeah, or community survey on potholes.
I'd certainly have a conversation with the consulting firm in regards to it, because they may have experience in this area,
Okay.
and make a decision, go forward.
Okay.
I agree. Have a conversation. I believe we may have discussed it in the past that other communities do them as well, and I think they're all called the satisfaction survey. We can check, but thank you. Anything else that you need just on the survey, and then maybe we can move along? Deputy Mayor Croson started talking about the online budget allocator tool, and I may have missed it. So is it going to be exactly that? You're allocated $100 and you've got to spend it how you see fit? Or how is it going to work exactly? I'm trying to recall.
Yeah, and I don't have the details on that, unfortunately, but it is going to be the exact same as it was. The intention is for it to be the exact same as it was previously because it was so successful. So if Councillor Corson's recollection is correct, then yes, it will be $100 and you get to decide where you spend that.
It was organized through finance before, so I can check with Shauna and just double check on how it ran before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you need any feedback on that?
I don't think so. I mean, I've heard, and I think the consultants also said we had really good engagement on that one from our community. So it sounds like it was very successful from the last go round. So we're just excited to hopefully grow that and get more people participating.
Excellent. I'm seeing nobody have any other comments on that. Were there other things you wanted some feedback on?
No, I guess I just wanted to make sure you were okay with doing, you know, and with the budget changing the way it is, technically we would do engagement every 2 years, right, on either operating or capital. So now we're doing it once every 4 years. So, and this one being a bit of an odd one as we shift this new model, that we do go out a little bit stronger, like with that in-home postcard, hopefully trying to be more accessible to people, and hopefully that helps get a little bit more engagement and gets people participating a bit better.
Thank you. I'm seeing no one jump into the queue, so I'll just ask a few quick questions. The in-person engagement, what I think I saw was it's all trying to piggyback on other events. So nothing specific to come on down and have a donut in City Hall. Have we moved completely away from those open houses? And I'm hoping the answer is yes.
I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that. I think on its own, it's not worth it. I think when we do those community conversations and we can invite people in to talk about a whole bunch of city projects and budget and this and that, we get better engagement. To have people come talk about one thing is a really tricky sell. And I don't know that it would be worth it. That's why we figure I know even when we did the cycling master plan, they went to the farmer's market for a couple days, a couple Saturdays, and there's tons of people there. You can just talk to people, right? So I think it might be helpful to just go to where the people are at more than trying to make them come to us.
Thank you. Opening it up, if any of the members of the committee have any discussion on the engagement and communication methods and tools that were presented? I'm seeing none. So then we can maybe move along. I had some comments or thoughts or questions on the actual public engagement policy.
Oh, okay.
Just to explore a bit. We developed this in the last term, and how is it?
Up for review this year. 2022 is the year it's supposed to be reviewed, yeah.
So maybe, and will it be this committee it comes to?
I'm assuming so, yes. I mean, it's on our plan for a little bit later in the year, as soon as we get this.
Then perhaps that's the more appropriate time to dive into that, and I'll leave my questions on the policy till then. Excellent. Anything further you and your team need from this committee?
No, I don't think so. Thank you very much for your time and feedback.
Thank you. And any final members from the committee? Any final comments? Nope. Excellent. Thank you. We'll move along. I do have a resolution from Councillor Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommend that Council receive the Community Engagement Strategy as provided in Attachment 1 and the Community Satisfaction Survey as provided in Attachment 3 for information. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Unless there's any room for additional debate, I call the question.
I'm seeing none. The question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. I keep losing my agenda. Oh, I just keep covering it. Never mind. All right, moving on to the next item 6.1, submissions from Gerald Gauthier, communication and reporting consultant regarding the report on the 2021 corporate strategic goals and accomplishments. I see we have Mr. Gauthier with us to answer any questions, I'm assuming. I see Mr. Vandenheuvel is going to jump in as well.
Gerald was one that created the report, so we wanted to acknowledge his efforts in there, but I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the content of the report.
Thank you. I do have a question from Acting Mayor Dodick.
Yes, at the very end of the report, it says hired an intergovernmental and advocacy advisor as well as an engagement and partnership specialist. What does that entail?
So those positions have been filled. We've, Sandra Duchesne is the Intergovernmental and Advocacy Advisor, formerly from the college, working with the City of Lethbridge now for the last couple of months, specifically connected to all the intergovernmental relationships with the county or the other levels of government and other jurisdictions that council wishes to engage your skill set with. And the engagement and partnership specialist was just at the last presentation there with Tara, and that's to put a specific deliberate focus on community engagement and being in touch on an ongoing basis, not just related to the operating or capital budgets, but on an ongoing basis as the pulse of the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention, I believe we've been joined by Mayor Higgin. Mayor Higgin, if you do have a question, just just buzz in, and hopefully I'll see it. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. Just an observation, is Mr. Gauthier viewed as an advisor or a specialist?
I view them both as
Excellent.
an advisor and a specialist.
My question is in regards to the 2021 strategic goals and accomplishments. Talk about people excellence, and we're talking about core competency training. What does that look like?
So in 2021, probably one of the most significant movements we've seen in a long time is the core competency training, where we identified the core competencies by position. Specifically, one of the largest undertakings and most successful undertakings in that area in 2021 was the General Manager Cohort Training Program, where about 15 or 20 of our general managers went through together and developed and worked on the competencies identified at the general manager level, which is long. There's been a long duration between the last time we did that, and the participants that participated in that had overwhelming positive responses to it. And the second iteration is now beginning in 2022. So just that alone, and identifying the competencies attached to the positions and putting the training program into the learning management system has progressed us significantly, where it is not only a priority, but to track and measure and report it on priority.
Okay, so we've identified competencies based on what managers' view of the competencies are of the employees that work for them.
Yeah, the competencies were developed not only just by the managers putting forward their views, but looking at across, we used a consulting firm, McLean & McLean, and across Canada and North America, where they looked at the positions that were similar and looked where the competency listings were there. So it wasn't just our own interpretation, it was supported by advice from most consultants.
Okay. So now let's move forward to the core competency training. So what does that look like for the various areas of the corporation?
So the core competency trainings, once your competencies are identified, each individual, and we can speak from any level of the organization, meets at least annually with their direct supervisor to put together a performance plan. And there may be courses, internal or external programs, degrees that they move towards with the support of their supervisor to develop them within their core competencies. As those competencies go up, those training offerings will take a different shape or form. For example, the general manager cohort training one was they got together on at least a weekly basis for probably 4 or 5 months, covering a number of different topics with assignments and report outs and evaluation tools throughout the whole thing, to not only demonstrate the introduction of the competency, but start to measure the proficiency in the application of it.
Just thinking in terms of, I'm an electrician working for the city somewhere, what kind of training, ongoing training am I getting, not only to support my competencies, but also to support my desire to move forward in the organization?
So that would be negotiated with your individual supervisor. Some training is very corporate-wide. For example, in addition to and you'll see in the customer excellence side of it, where every City of Lethbridge employee received customer service training, right? So if that individual, as you say, they would maintain their core competencies, but if they want to develop, their manager or supervisor work with them and say, to develop the next level of competency, i.e. move to supervisor or manager level, here identified competencies, and here's the training that would be attached to each, and here's how we'll support you over a reasonable duration of time to gather those skills.
Okay. Last question then for the 1,800 employees that we have. So we provide training, we provide opportunities to access training exterior to the organization, and do we provide funding for?
Yes, yeah. Yes, and in fact, we're starting to see probably in this upcoming budget cycle, one of the things, 2 years ago when we went through the exercise of the budget reduction exercise, we looked at training budgets in every single department, and one of the things that we decided is probably to support this initiative and its priority is consolidating that training budget and using it in a much more strategic manner, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Crowson.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Thank you, Mr. Vandenhoeven and Mr. Gauthier, for the report. Certainly a lot going on. But let me nutshell this. I always like to go to the basic stuff. Series of questions. Is this working? Is this working is the work getting done in a strategic manner? And is this work getting done in a way that benefits our community, our corporation, and our employees?
Thank you for the question. It's a very important question because this report is really the first iteration of where we started as a corporation to apply all of the concepts and pieces of the performance excellence framework, which Council had been introduced to a number of times in the last term. And that was a direct result of the KPMG operational review that said as a corporation, we lacked an organizational performance excellence framework. So going through the first iteration of it last year, this report, I'm pleased to say, is a good example of we said what we were going to do, we messaged what we were going to do, and we accomplished what we were going to do. We reported on what we accomplished, and we celebrated those successes. And now heading into 2022, this current council has taken the leadership role of using the Performance Excellence Framework by providing us with your Council Now, Next, Later plan, supplemented by our updated corporate strategic plan, supplemented by the department business plans that starts us in the strategy arena of the Performance Excellence Framework, and it is working through. And you will see upcoming in April, as Tara referred to earlier, the first report out on the first quarter of Council's Now Action Plan. And this leadership shown by Council and setting us forward into this framework and using this year after year, it allows us to be proficient and be able to consistently demonstrate where we're succeeding, where we need assistance, where we could use improvement. So I believe it is working, it's working well, and we appreciate the leadership that Council has provided us in this area.
Thank you. And based partly on your answer, but also a question I already had, this is not only looking at where we're succeeding, what we've achieved, but it is supposed to be a way of noting any concerns. So based on what you have so far, are there any concerns that you would make sure that the SBC or Council as a whole should know at this time?
Councillor Crowson, at this time, there was actually not a lot of concerns coming out of this first iteration because it was a lot of the objectives and the initiatives were setting up the systems and the processes. As we move and continue down that path, our paths of creating these initiatives to put these pieces in place, when the tools start being utilized and we start to look at our service levels and our service levels related to what's been approved or what benchmarking would be in a particular area, when we look at the litmus tests of employee satisfaction and well-being in the organization, those types of reports that are coming out in 2022 and subsequent years will start to tell us where we need to, based on data, spend our efforts and focus our attentions to. This first report that you see in front of you right now was really a building report and getting the pieces in place so that we could move to the next level.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we definitely love to celebrate the hard work people have done, and there's evidence of people, doing work, and congratulations to all the staff who are. Of course, as SBC and council, our job is to also know the things that aren't working so we can work to improve those. So thank you. Thank you for the report and the work that's been done. Thank you, Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My queue is empty. One quick question I had. The purpose of this is to inform council. And so we'll be sending it on to council. It is just to inform, and according to our engagement approach scale, to inform means we will keep you informed. I'm just wondering, well, that's according to our scale. It's the promise. We will inform you, and that's our promise. We'll keep you informed. I'm wondering if there is a step that could be skipped instead of these reports coming to the SPC, but just going directly to council. There's no consultation, there's no tweaking, there's no changing. It's purely here's the information, and so coming to this committee as information and then going to council as information seems to be an extra step. I'm just wondering if that makes sense to anyone.
Are you suggesting to obfuscate the process?
No, there are just certain things that go directly to council. The monthly procurement report, et cetera, that doesn't go to economic SPC first. It goes directly to council because that's who the promise is to inform. And so I'm just wondering if we could skip a step.
So the question would be to the city clerk, based on the process that we have now, would Councillor Carlson have to bring a motion to do exactly what he's suggesting he'd like to do right now in an informal way?
May I also add to the conversation, Councillor Carlson?
Yes.
I think the fact that this is a building report reminds us that the other reports coming in the subsequent quarters may have more information and different motions. So you may just be early in your idea of it, and future stuff will be different.
Agreed, and point taken that we are still in early days of SBCs and how they work, so perhaps giving it more time before changing the process makes more sense, so I won't bother continuing down that line. So excellent, thank you. My queue is empty. I do have a resolution moved by Acting Mayor Dodick that be it resolved that the Governance SPC recommend that Council receive the report on the 2021 Corporate Strategic Goals and Achievements as in Attachment 1 as information. Acting Mayor Dodick?
Yes, I'd like to thank Mr. Gerald Gauthier for the presentation he made by way of submission, i.e. by way of written submission, which engendered much discussion and much thoughtfulness and provoked all of council to see what is actually going on. So with that, I would hope that I would get the rest of SBC's support. I would like this, if possible, to be a unanimous decision. So I would call the question.
So is that an amendment to your motion that Mr. Gauthier be thanked for his presentation that was not a presentation?
That's great. So that is more of a point of order comment. So I'm trying to issue obfuscation.
Excellent.
So still call the question.
Thank you for that. Question has been called. Were there any further comments or debate? Seeing none, the motion is called. All in favor? Opposed?
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Moving on to item 6.2. Adam Faust, solicitor, regarding the Integrity Commissioner. I don't see Mr. Faust. Oh, Mr. Faust has joined us online. If there's any questions regarding this. Mr. Faust, did you have a presentation that was not a presentation? Or just here to answer any questions that may have arisen from your report?
I can provide a quick update, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. What's before you now is the actual amending bylaw that would put into effect the changes that were tracked in the previous bylaw Word document that's been accompanying us through this process. I can also provide an update that as far as I see this moving forward, this will get the bylaw into the process of first reading, second, third reading. I have been working with HR, and we do have a draft expression of interest, which would be the posting for people to apply to this position. And I envision that once the bylaw's working its way through, the next SPC will come back with a package and real outline and plan as to how we implement that, job posting, timelines for that, and scheduling, arranging applications.
Thank you. So what we have in front of us is moving the Integrity Commissioner and the change to the bylaw forward, basically.
Correct.
Thank you. Open it up to any questions. I'm seeing none. Excellent. I don't have a mover for this, so I'm looking for someone to move that be it resolved that the Governance SPC recommend that Council provide first reading of Bylaw 6362.
I can move that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, the resolution has been read. Any questions on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll leave it to Deputy Mayor Crowson to open.
This is a continuation of a process, of course, we've been working on for several months. And if anyone has concerns about the bylaw, of course, they'll have plenty of opportunity at second reading to make changes or to argue against it, et cetera. So there's, this is, as I said, moving the process, and you have lots of options coming up. I do thank the City Solicitor's Department and the City Clerk's Department for the track changes portion of it. The version is very good so people can see, particularly in sections 17 and 18, the changes that have been made to the Code of Conduct bylaw. And as Mr. Faust pointed out, there are processes moving forward that if this all passes, a posting would be put out. So unless there's any questions on that, I will call the question.
Thank you. I'm not sure if it's questions or debate. Acting Mayor.
Yes, I was going to say, I was going to exercise the option of voting against this earlier rather than later, and in the interest of consistency, I will not be supporting this resolution.
I'm seeing no further debate. Deputy Mayor to close.
Simply call the question.
Question has been called. All in favor? Opposed? And that fails on a tie. Thank you. Just a question on process. We're not referring this to council. Does it just stay at committee, or I'm not sure the process from here on forward?
Thank you for the question. So it's a lost recommendation. The information would still have to go to council, the report that you see today, but it would show committee's lost recommendation. This was directed by council, so it should go back to council.
So it'll just be in the consent agenda, was part of the package that this recommendation failed.
Correct, and I don't believe it would be on there to recommend first reading because that wasn't the direction of committee.
Thank you. I see nothing further on the agenda that I actually kept in front of me. So I just have adjournment. We no longer call for the vote. I'm going to gavel because I never get a chance to. We are adjourned.